£3,800, 150 pounds. Let's put these two cameras to the test and see what difference that extra £3,650 makes in the shots. Let's go. So this is the Canon 5D Mark IV with the 25-105 L series lens, currently retailing at around £3,800. This one here is the Canon EOS 1200D. You can't actually buy this at the minute, it's been discontinued, but you can grab them on eBay for around about £150, right? So let's put these through their paces and see just what that extra £3,650 gets you. We're going to do a model shoot. We're in like an urban environment here. I'm going to take some shots in the dark, I'm going to take some shots in the light, and we're really going to put these through their paces, and then we're going to look at the differences and see what you get for that extra money. All right, let's go and take the first shot. Let me introduce you to Emily here. She is going to be our model for this shoot. The first test that we're going to do is we're going to do it in dark. Obviously we're in a car park and it's very dark under here, so that is really going to put the ISO and the noise to the test in this video. So let's start there. So the first shot I'm going for is I'm going to try and use all of these lines, these concrete lines, and the strip lighting here leading me into the model. All right, we have got an aperture of f4. I'm going to use f4. The ISO is really climbing up high, 1600, 3200 in at times, and yeah, let's go for it. Let's take this shot. So I'm going to come down low as well, kind of wide angle, and that's it, Emily. When you're ready, you come walking towards me, please. Thank you. That's it. Nice and confident. Very good, Emily. Very good. Now, now we need to do it with the 1200D. So there's the 1200D. Now, the first thing that you notice clearly is it's a lot lighter, a lot smaller, more plasticky, you know, all of them kind of things. Shooting on fully manual, I'm going to put the shutter speed onto 1/100th of a second. It's currently at f4.5, and I'm leaving the ISO onto auto to pick up the slack, okay? Because, you know, these lights are changing, and if I zoom in or zoom out or whatever, it's going to change. Now, let me just say that, yeah, the ISO is quite high, so it's going to be a good test for this camera. It's currently giving me 30, well, actually it's flickering between 1600 and 3200 here. Shooting on RAW as well, so that we can process it properly. And I think that all that's left is to take some shots of it, okay? So let's go. Cool. Right, so I'm happy with them shots. Now I'm going to try and do some headshots under here, and it's really dark, so I'm going to try and do some like cropped in headshots. I'm going to use the reflector, maybe bounce some light back in, and some catch lights in there. Yeah, so let's give that a go. All right, let's go. We've got this strip light right above us, silver reflector, very cheap silver reflector. Links in the description if you want to go and buy one of these. I'm reflecting up into the model's face, and we are creating a lovely catch light, a lovely sparkle in the eye. Let's take some shots here. Okay, here we go, Emily, and just looking at me. Lovely, I like that a lot. Okay, and head down slightly. Good. Right, now we're going to do the same thing with the 1200D. So let's just grab that wherever it is. Over there. Okay, good. Hold on to that, Emily. Let's go and grab that. ISO is much better now because we're under this light. So I'm getting much less ISO. Does that make sense? You know what I mean. I'm currently getting an ISO of 800 now, which is much better. Come forward a little bit, Emily, please. And that's it, like that. I am still on manual, 100th of a second, the widest aperture that I can go on. All right, let's take some shots. I like that one.
Yeah.
I've just seen a picture there, it's got a bit of camera shake on. Now, you know, I want to keep the shutter speed as slow as possible to allow as much lighting as possible, but you risk camera shake. Now I'm shooting at 1/100th of a second. Most of the shots have actually come out all right, but there's a couple there of a slight bit of camera shake. Now there's a few things that you can do. You can up the shutter speed. If you up the shutter speed, the ISO is going to increase, so you're going to increase noise, right? So you know, you've got to balance it out. But I'm all right with 100th of a second, even when I'm zoomed in a little bit. Be careful when you're doing it yourself. Just check your own steadiness, if you like. All right. Some people can hand hold it at 60th of a second, and good luck to you if you can do that. I can't. I need to be 100, 125th or more. And also zooming in and out is going to affect that as well. The more you're zoomed in, the more likely you are to get camera shake. We're happy with that, aren't we?
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. And now we're going to take some shots outside, if you like, where it's a bit more brighter. Let's go. Right, so we're outside now, and obviously it's nice and bright, so the ISO is going down to 100, which is absolutely perfect. I am going to use all of this concrete and this rust as foreground interest. I'm going to use this line to lead me into Emily here, into the model, and take a few shots. All right, Emily's changed her outfit as well to kind of match, and let's go. Now for the technical part of it, I'm shooting at f4. This time I'm on AV, actually, aperture priority, and that is because the sun is going in and out, right? Which means the shutter speed is going to go up and down. Now because it's so bright, I've not got to worry about shutter speeds out here. I'm getting 2/50th of a second, easy, all right? So it's not going to get any camera shake out here. Let's take a few more shots. So I've took some from this side and that side, and now I'm going to get the 1200D and do the same thing. All right. So now I've got the 1200D and I'm going to take the same shot. The aperture on this is not going to f4 like the other one did. This is going to f5. So I'm trying to shoot at the widest aperture. Again, I've got it on AV, and because we're using obviously the 1200D with this lens, when I'm zoomed in slightly, so I'm going to be shooting at roughly 35mm on this. This is a crop sensor camera, and then on the other one I was shooting around about 50mm because that is a full frame camera, so I'm trying to get like the equivalent between the two. But this lens, the widest aperture that it can produce at that focal length is f5, so there's a limitation there. The shutter speed 320th of a second roughly ISO is at 100, that's all absolutely fine. Yeah, that's it really. So let's take some shots with this one as well. Here we go. Just took them pictures. Now let's go to a different location. I've got another idea and take some more shots, all right? So we've got another idea now. I've got this kind of no parking sign here that's been sprayed onto a concrete wall. I'm going to use the word no and add the model in there and well, just see how it comes out. Anyway, that's the idea I've got. I'm going to go low to the floor as well, and I'm going to take some with the model standing, sitting. Let's see how it comes out. All right, so again, we're outside. I'm going to keep it on f4, which is the widest aperture it can go on. The ISO is on 100. Shutter speed is hovering around 200/250th of a second, and I'm going to shoot at a focal length, the full frame camera here, between 50 and 70, I think. See how that comes out. Right, let's have a crack at this. Oh my God, my neck's hurting. Right, we've got some good shots now with this, the 5D Mark IV. Now let's get the 1200D and give the same thing a go again. Oh. Now I've got the 1200D, and the difference is here with the two cameras is I'm going to be zooming into around about 50mm on this. This is a crop sensor, and it was around about 70-80mm on that one, so it's going to be around about 40-50 on this one to try and get a rough equivalent. Now when I'm at that focal length, this camera, the widest aperture it will go at is f5.6, whereas the other camera there was f4, so there's a difference there. The ISO is going to be at 100, the shutter speed is 1/200th of a second, and that's it. Oh, the other thing that you may well have noticed is there's no lens hood on this, and there is a lens hood on that. You should always have a lens hood on your camera, but I haven't got one for this. I borrowed this off of a friend, so you know, it's just the way it is. But we'll see the difference, eh? We'll see what it actually does. Okay, let's take the shots. Okay, well done, Emily. That's good. That's good. Now we are going to do another idea, the last idea that I've got for this portrait shoot. All right, so let's go and do that, Emily. Let's go. So we've come to this different area, obviously, now to take this other idea. Emily is now dressed all in black with black sunglasses, and we've got this silver, you know, metal grid here in the background, and we're going to take some really cool shots here. I think I want it to look quite symmetrical, so I'm going to use like a symmetrical composition, try and place Emily in the middle of this grid, and yeah, take some shots. So we're going to do it on the 5D first. Again, I'm going to use the widest aperture I can, again because it's portraiture. I'm going to use a focal length of around 50mm, right? 50mm on a full frame, which is as your eye sees. Again, I really like that for portraiture. A 50mm lens for portraiture on a full frame camera works really well. I'm going into manual. I'm going to put the shutter speed onto 1/25th of a second. The aperture is at f4, and the ISO is going to be hovering around 100 to 200. And that's how I'm going to use the 5D Mark IV. So let's take some shots, Emily. You ready? Yeah, we've got some good shots here actually. The black clothes, black sunglasses, the silver in the background, they work really well together. Now I need to get the 1200D and do the same thing. So I've got the 1200D here now to take the pictures and just to run you through what I'm going to do and what's different. So for this one, I'm going to be shooting at a focal length of around about 30 to 35mm, which will give me the equivalent of 50mm on the other camera there. Again, I'm going to go into manual. I'm going to put this shutter speed onto 125th of a second. You know, we're outside and it's bright, so you know I can get away with that and still have a low ISO. The widest aperture I can get on this lens at that focal length is, let's just check, is 4.5, f4.5. It's giving me an ISO of 200, absolutely fine. Let's take some shots, shall we? You ready, Emily? We have got enough shots there. Now we need to go back to the studio, process them, have a look at them in more detail, zoom in, you know, look at the differences in the two shots and see the difference that a £150 camera has against a £3,800 camera. So just to say thanks to our lovely model here, look at her, Emily. And now let's go back to the studio and look at these pictures. Okay, we are back in the studio now, guys, and we are going to have a good look at these pictures. But before I do, I want to take this opportunity to tell you about the online courses that we run over at the schoolofphotography.com. We are professional teachers. I've been teaching since 2002, and now we teach people all over the world this beautiful craft of photography. So if you want to be taught in a professional, structured way and save time and make sure that you get accurate and thorough knowledge, come over to the schoolofphotography.com where we can help you out. We'll teach you photography, Lightroom, Photoshop, studio lighting, anything photography related. Plus there's a load of freebies as well, so you can try before you buy. So come and see us at the schoolofphotography.com. Right, now let's have a good look at these pictures. Now I have edited these pictures exactly as I would do for a professional job, and I've done the same for the 1200D pictures and the 5D pictures so that we get a fair comparison. All right, all pictures are edited, so it is a fair comparison to do it that way. So let's take a good look now, first of all, at the first picture that I took, which was the one under the car park where we had all of the leading lines going into the model. Now, if you want to look at these pictures in more detail, there is a link in the description of this video, and it will take you to a page where you can view these pictures, you know, bigger and, you know, stare at them a bit more if you want to. Plus, the presets that I've used for these pictures, to edit these pictures, I'm giving to you for free. There's a link again in the description of this video. So if you like the look of these pictures, not just this one, but all of them, they're the presets that I've used for them. I'm giving them to you for free. The link is in the description of the video. Now, here's the pictures. Here is the 5D one, and here is the 1200D picture. Now, at first glance, you can't tell that they have been taken with different cameras. And let's have a look at the exposure of both of the cameras. So this one here, this is the 1200D. As you can see up the top here, it was shot at an ISO of 1600. And the aperture was at f3.5. If I go back to the other one here, this is the 5D picture. This was shot at an ISO of 4000. 4000 and the aperture was at f4. And that's because with this camera here, the cheap one, at wider angles, it's actually got a wider aperture than this one here. And because of that, for this particular shot, that's enabled the ISO to be lower. But now let's zoom in and have a look and see, you know, the noise of the pictures. So now I'm going to zoom in here. This is now looking at the picture at 100%. The 5D here, you can see that there is noise here, as you would expect at ISO 4000. There is noise in this shot. All right, it was a challenging situation, this shot, a real test for both cameras. Let's go to the 1200D one now, and again you can see noise in the shot. This one was taken at ISO 1600. But if we now flick between the two, there's the 5D and there's a 1200D. For argument's sake, there is not much difference in the noise, right? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to a compare view, and let's compare both of the shots next to each other. So this one here is the 1200D and this one here is the 5D. You know, next to each other, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I don't know about you, but I certainly would not be able to tell the difference between them two shots. So in that particular shot, what do you reckon, equal? I think so. I think that they're pretty equal when you consider just looking them together like this, right? Okay, now let's go and have a look at the next shot, which was the one that I took using the silver reflector. So if you remember, we got the model under one of them strip lights, silver reflector underneath, and we took some shots. Let's have a look at this one. So again, at first glance, I can't tell what camera each picture was taken with. Let's now have a look at these in a bit more detail. So here is the one that's been taken with the 5D, the 3800 camera here. And also I've put a really cool preset over this. You don't forget you've got that, it's in the description of this video. And it really gives a cool feel to the shot. So I like that preset. You've got it, go and grab it, it's brilliant. And now let's look at the one here that was taken on the 1200D, this one here. And if we look over here at the settings of each camera, this one was taken at f5, ISO 1250. And if we go back to the other picture, this one was taken at f4 and ISO at 640. Now, that is where the difference in the lenses are coming into effect, and in fact this lens, the more expensive lens here, is doing a better job because it's wider. This lens on the £150 camera will not go to f4 when zoomed in. So this was at a focal length of 55mm, which is a great focal length for portraiture. This is on the full frame camera, this one here, the Canon 5D Mark IV, and then the next one across here, this was taken at a focal length of 43mm. For argument's sake, in reality, this one here, the cheaper camera, would be zoomed in more than the other one, than the full frame camera. But essentially what that has done is pushed up the ISO of the 1200D here. So let's zoom in into both of these pictures. So this is the 1200D, and you can see the noise in this shot when you zoom into it. It looks like it's a little bit soft, but that's because of the noise due to the higher ISO. We go to the 5D Mark IV shot here, and it's a bit more smoother. You can see still a little bit of noise because it is ISO 600 and something, but not much at all. And actually, let's go to compare view and drag this one in. We put them together. You can see that that little extra stop, it's nearly a stop extra of light is what you're getting with the more expensive camera. It is giving you a bit more detail, but very, very fine. I mean, you are splitting hairs here. It's giving you a little bit more light, which is enabling you to have less noise. You are splitting hairs, but it's made a little bit of a difference. Okay, now let's go and have a good look at the shots that we took outside with that concrete wall. And I was using that line to lead me into the model. So we was outside for this shot, obviously, so you know the ISO could be low because we had plenty of light, and that was great. The difference was in the 5D shot, the sun came out, all right? So the shots will look different just because of that, but you've got to understand that it's because of the sun coming out, not the camera, all right? So here is the shot with the 5D. Obviously the sun's out with this one, and then here is the one with the 1200D here. Again, let's have a look up here at the exposure. The aperture on the 1200D is f5. Let's go to the other one, and this one is f4. The focal length for both cameras, I tried to keep it as equivalent as I could, and for that reason the more expensive camera has got a wider aperture at that focal length. And as you can see, you just have a look at the foreground, the depth of field in the foreground. This is the 5D again, and this is the 1200D. And you can see that that extra stop, or nearly a stop in aperture, really does affect the foreground. It's much more blurrier here in the 5D shot than it is in the 1200D shot. Now let's zoom in and have a good look at them both at 100% of their pixels. Here is the 1200D shot, and here is the 5D shot. Let's just move that a little bit over here, so it's roughly equal to the other one. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm flicking between the two here. Now remember, they are going to look different because of the sun's like beaming in on one of the shots. But apart from that, you know, let's flick between the two again. There is hardly any difference in the quality of the shot, because the ISO, let's have a look. The ISO of both shots is at 100. Now I think that's pretty good, to be fair. There is hardly any difference in quality between these two cameras. Yes, you've got the more shallow depth of field with this one because of the wider f-stop, but apart from that, I think that they're pretty good when it comes to comparing them head to head for quality. I think that they're quite cool. So that's that one. Okay, now let's have a look at the next shot that I took, which was where Emily the model was sitting and leaning up against the wall, and the word no was like next to her up there somewhere. All right, let's have a look at that shot. So for argument's sake, this was pretty much the same as the last shot, except for the preset that's been put over the top of this one is really, really cool. I've gone for like an 80s look here. Again, you've got it, grab it, it is free. Okay, let's have a look now. This is the 5D shot, and this is the 1200D shot. Now, I don't care who you are, you will not tell the difference what camera was used between these two shots. They are both equally as good, I think. The only difference again is the depth of field because of the aperture change. So in the 5D, it's a bit more blurry in the foreground, and in here, in this one on the 1200D, it's not as blurry. If we zoom in and have a closer look, so I'm going to now zoom in to the face, again 100% of the pixels, and that is how you should view your pictures. There's no point viewing them, you know, at 200% of the pixels, because it will blur, it will pixelate. Let's go to compare view and drag the other one into here. And let's move it around so I've got the same thing on both. There we go. So we're looking at the face on both. Now you look at them two together and you know the quality is the same on both. No difference whatsoever. And you know that, well, that's it really. I don't really know what else to say. Quality the same on both of these cameras. Depth of field different, bit more blurrier with the 5D Mark IV with the more expensive camera. Okay, now let's look at the last shot that I took, which was with Emily leaning up against that metal wall thing, and I was trying to get her in the middle of that grid, if you like. Let's have a look at that shot. So again, at first glance, them two shots, I don't think that you can tell what camera they've been taken on. There is a slight difference in the colour of the two shots, like one's a bit more vibrant than the other, but that's actually just to do with the processing. Don't worry too much about different colours between different cameras. I mean, I hear people saying, oh, the skin tones on a Nikon is better than the skin tones on a Canon. I mean, that's just pathetic things, to be honest with you, right? Because you can change colours so easily in post-processing. That is not really what to worry about when it comes to choosing cameras. Let's have a deeper look now at these two pictures. So here is the one, what's this one? This is the 5D. And here is the 1200D. Like I said, and you look at both of them like this, at first glance, you wouldn't have a clue what camera they was taken on. Let's zoom in. So now we're viewing them at 100% of the pixels. This is the 5D shot. And then I'm going to go to this one here, which is the 1200D shot. The other thing I want us to look at with this shot is the exposure. So up here, we've got an ISO of 250. An aperture at 4.5. Let's go now to the 5D one. This is an ISO of 200, an aperture at f4. So there's a very slight difference, a really, really slight difference in the exposure. But again, you can see a little bit of noise or grain. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like grain in the olden days. With this one on the 1200D, which you don't see as much in this one here on the 5D. Let's put them into compare view again. Just drag that into there like that and move it a bit more central. So there they are two together. And yeah, like I said, the 1200D one there looks really slightly more noisy. And you are splitting hairs there, or I am splitting hairs there. So for argument's sake, I tell you what, these two pictures are near on the same. Here is my conclusion. Now, quite clearly, you can take just as good pictures with a £150 camera as you can with a £3,800 camera. It is your knowledge that's important, not the equipment that you use. But let's talk about some specifics, shall we? Let's talk about the processing speeds between the two cameras. Now, in this test, as you saw when we was out in the field, this £150 camera did really well. It just kept up with the shots I was taking. I was shooting in RAW, both cameras shooting in RAW, and in this particular test, it kept up just fine. But if you are going to start shooting really quickly, let's just say on continuous shooting mode and things like that, then the cheaper camera might struggle, and that is where more expensive cameras, they've got well, they've got more processing speed, if you like. So that means that you can take a load of pictures and it will just continue to process them and allow you to carry on taking pictures. So if that's something that's important to you, then maybe more expensive cameras will suit you more. And let's talk about the resolution between the two cameras, all right? So this one here, the 1200D, is 18 megapixels, all right? This one here, the Canon 5D Mark IV, is 30.4, if you want to be specific, 30.4 megapixels. Now, does that make a difference? Well, clearly not in this situation, but it might make a difference if you are going to start printing really big and stuff like that. But you know what? Don't worry about things like that. 18 megapixels is fine for most things that you want to do. There's going to be some people out there that are going to start shouting at the screen going, oh, what about pixel density and stuff like that? Well, if you're one of them people, then you are not good at taking pictures, because if you're worrying about things like that, you're not worrying about getting the shot. And like we've just seen here, you can get the shot in both cameras. Yes, more resolution is going to enable you to zoom in more, print bigger and stuff like that, but just to get the shot, you know, you don't need it. As for the lens, yes, you get wider aperture with the more expensive lens, and more expensive lenses in general do give you wider apertures, and that does make a difference. All right, that makes a difference to depth of field, and it makes a difference in low light situations. You're going to get people as well shouting at the screen going, oh, what about the glass? The glass is different, blah, blah, blah. But if you are adept in post-processing, then, you know, the color differences that the different glasses make, you can change in post-processing anyway, so that is not really something to worry about. But the aperture and getting wider apertures is, I think, worth paying the extra money for. But you don't have to spend a fortune, you know. These Canons and Nikons, actually, I think most brands, they do like a cheap version of a 50mm lens. So the Canons and Nikons, they do a 50mm f1.8. They're roughly about £100, and they will give you apertures up to f1.8, which is absolutely brilliant. So when you really look at it, you could get a £150 camera with a £100 lens, or get one second hand for even cheaper. So for 250 quid, you know, you could have a really good kit to get you started. So I think it's proven here that you can get a really good portfolio of images with a cheap camera, just as much as you can with an expensive camera. And I think the point here is, if you can't take decent shots with a cheap camera, then you certainly are not going to be taking them with an expensive camera. Expensive equipment will not make your shots better. Your control and knowledge of photography will do that. So why do I have this expensive equipment, right? If I've just proven to you, which I think that I have, and I've got to say right from the start, I've never done this test before, and I am surprised with these results, probably just like you are. I didn't really think that this camera here, the cheap camera, was going to do as good as it did, but it did. So why do I buy expensive equipment and not use this cheap one? Well, we use this expensive camera here nearly every day in our business, right? We use it for filming and we use it for shooting, and I need to know that I've got a reliable piece of equipment. And when it comes to build quality, these expensive cameras really do shine out. I mean, I have got a 5D Mark II, which is years old. It's been bashed around, kicked about and whatever. It still works like it did when it was brand new. So for me, it's that reliability. And like I said to you, you know, the lenses and the wider apertures, I do think help. So now I'm handing it over to you guys, right? Is it worth the extra money? You've seen the results, right? Is it worth you spending an extra £3,650 to get this more expensive equipment, or can you make do with what we've got here, which was that £150 second-hand camera? Are you one of these people that have spent a lot of money on expensive equipment thinking it's going to make your shots better, but it hasn't actually done that? Now, are you going to be honest enough to tell us in the comments below? Or are you one of these people that have spent a fortune on equipment and think, oh, do you know what, it has made a real difference? Again, put it in the comments below, but tell us why it's made a difference as well. Sharing your thoughts with other people I think is going to be really good for this video, and I look forward to seeing what you've got to say. Now, if you've liked this video, you need to do us a favor by liking the video. Share it with people that you think have bought a lot of expensive equipment and might not have done them a favor, right? Share it with them, or just share it with your friends anyway. Subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media and things like that. You know, we cannot bring you these tutorials. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. We can't do that without your support. And I'll tell you what, you know, I really love you for doing it, and I really appreciate every like, every subscription that we get. Thanks for watching, and remember, learn more at the School of Photography.